Hi, I'm Kathy Habis, a family safety expert with Safewise.com. I've been testing and reviewing kids' smartwatches since 2021, but I've never been able to test all of my favorites at once. Until now. So I'm really excited to test 7 kids' smartwatches, head-to-head in real-life scenarios. At the end of the day, we're going to know which one has the best GPS tracking, battery life, and more. I'll be sharing my methodology as we go along, so let's get to it. The smartwatches I have for testing are the Verizon Gizmo Watch 3, the TickTalk 5, the Pinwheel watch, the My First Phone R2, the Gabb Watch 3E, the Cosmo JrTrack 5, and the Bark Watch. First, I prepped for the battery life test. Battery life is affected by certain settings, so I tried to even the playing field. I set each watch to medium brightness, made sure the step counter was on, and set the location update interval to 60 minutes. As it turns out, you can't set specific location update intervals on the Bark or Pinwheel watches, so they're just going to do what they're going to do. Next, I charged all 7 smartwatches to 100% and took them off the chargers at the same time. Now we're ready to get these guys out into the world and do some location tracking. We're going to start with geofencing. A geofence is also called a safe zone, and it uses GPS to map a circle around a location like a home or a school. If your child leaves that circle or enters that circle, you get a notification. I created the same geofence for each watch, and it should trigger as I cross this intersection. So I'm going to see what kind of notifications I get, and I'll be recording my phone screen to see what comes through. And I'm just looking to see that they actually are accurate. And geofencing is not a feature on the TickTalk 5 or the Pinwheel watch, so they'll be sitting this test out. Okay, so we crossed the intersection and they all should have gone off, but the only one that gave me a notification was the Bark watch. And it actually notified me that I was entering the geofence and not exiting it. So I'm gonna keep walking a little further and see if any of the others will give me a notification. Let's go. Okay, so we went about half a block further down than what the geofence was actually set for, and I got notifications from the Verizon Gizmo Watch 3 and then the Gabb Watch 3E. We kept walking outside of the safe zone, and then we entered the safe zone again. And once I was actually close to home, I got notifications from Bark and then Verizon and Gabb saying that I had arrived home. I still heard nothing from the My First Phone R2 or the Cosmo JrTrack 5, and I thought that was really strange. Then we got in the car and drove to a local park for the next set of tests, and on the way there is when I got notifications for Cosmo and My First. And I thought that it was a little bit weird that the notifications were coming in on the hour. So I did a little bit of research, and sure enough, Cosmo has this little disclaimer in their app saying that geofence alerts may be delayed based on your location update interval settings. So if you have the location update intervals set to every 60 minutes, like I had for all of these tests, you are not going to get geofence alerts immediately, which is the whole point of geofence alerts. You are going to get a notification every 60 minutes whether your kid is in the geofence or not. And I have a feeling that My First works the same way, even though they don't explicitly state that in their app. Okay, I'm here at a local park and I'm going to do location test now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into each parent app and request a live location update. And I'm sitting outside of a baseball field, so that'll have an easy landmark to see whether or not they give an accurate location. So let's see what happens. Okay, I have the results of the first GPS location test, and I did it out in the open, so there's no obstacles blocking the GPS signals from the satellites. Actually, the first 4 watches I have here did really well. They accurately pinpointed where I was sitting by the baseball field, so that's the Bark watch, the Cosmo JrTrack 2, the Gabb watch, and then My First Phone R2. I'm going to show you screenshots of the location updates on the screen. So 4 watches gave an accurate location. Bark, Cosmo, Gabb, and Verizon. They all knew I was at the ballpark and even which side of the diamond I was on. My First Phone R2 and Pinwheel thought I was a little bit further toward the parking lot and the road. Now here's the thing about these location tests. I am here today to split hairs. So I was definitely looking for spot on accuracy, but in the grand scheme of things, if you just want to know in general that your child is at the ballpark, all of those watches are going to tell you that. If you are looking for your child in a crowd, then you're going to want that spot on accuracy. The fact that none of those watches thought that I was like miles away in a different city is a great sign, but I knew these were all high quality watches, so I wasn't really expecting that anyway. The only watch that I couldn't get a location update on at all was the TickTalk 5, and I think that might be a setup issue on my end, not realizing that it was not correctly connecting to a cellular connection before I started all of this. So I'm going to try to troubleshoot that, see if I can get a hold of customer service, and we'll see what we can do. But for right now, TickTalk 5, not working. Okay, so any kind of obstacle can interfere with GPS signals and make location tracking less accurate. So what I did was I sat in a car and parked under a tree to try to introduce some obstacles, and most of the watches were pretty accurate, just like they were in the open field test. The main issue I ran into was with the Pinwheel watch. It took forever to refresh the location, and in fact, it's still refreshing. I have not gotten it to update, so it's not looking good for Pinwheel. This is my testing buddy check. I want to tell you about the indoor location tracking results. All the watches did really well knowing that I was at home. Again, like I said, I'm here to split hairs. So I will say that the My First Phone R2 and the Verizon Gizmo Watch 3 were a little bit off, showing me like toward a neighbor's house or in the yard versus like right where I was in my home, but all the other watches were very accurate. I also know a lot of parents want watches that show location history, including a map that shows the route your child took to get home or to go to a friend's house or wherever. And I was really surprised at how nicely Bark does with this. It's a really thorough location history that not only shows you the route they traveled, but also tells you whether or not they were in a car, how many miles away they went, etc. It's a lot more information than you get with a lot of the other watches. The Verizon Gizmo Watch 3 has a nice line map, as does the My First Phone R2. I'm just checking my notes here. The Pinwheel and Cosmo only give you dots on a map, and they don't connect them to show a route, which I didn't really like that. And then Gabb Watch 3E does not have any location history map at all. The third batch of tests is all about communication. On each watch, I'll send a text message, make a phone call, and press the SOS button. I'll be looking for clear audio, strong connections with no dropped calls, and timely notifications on the parent app. I'll also be interested in seeing how this activity ultimately affects battery life. The same watches that did really well in our geofencing test also did the best in our communication test. So the Bark Watch, the Verizon Gizmo Watch 3, and the Gabb Watch 3E had beautiful audio quality. Crystal clear, no dropped audio, no muffled background sounds. It was really easy to hear each other on those three watches. There was some kind of an issue with all of the other watches, whether it was muffled background noises, delayed audio that led to like really awkward stilted conversations. In terms of the SOS emergency calls, there were two watches that did not actually make calls. They sent notifications, and those were the Cosmo JrTrack 5 and the My First Phone R2. So the My First Phone R2 we thought was fantastic because the notification that was sent to the parent phone sounded like sirens. It was really hard to ignore, and it lets you know right away that there's something is going on. Whereas the Cosmo JrTrack 5, it doesn't really send you any kind of an indication that there's an emergency going on. It just sends a notification. The other watches all make phone calls, but they do not indicate that it is an emergency phone call. And also the My First Phone R2 sends 30 seconds of audio recorded at the time the SOS button is pressed. So that is pretty cool as well. Now, I was not able to test the TickTalk 5 because of the ongoing issues, but the only watch that failed this test completely was the Pinwheel watch. I could not get a emergency call to trigger on that watch. Supposedly, you push the button on the side 3 times fast and it makes an SOS phone call. I couldn't get it to work. We've had the watches off their chargers for about 4.5 hours now, and it's time for our first battery check-in. There's really no significant difference in performance so far. All of the watches are landing between 80% and 90% battery life, which is pretty good for being about a quarter of the way through the day. It's the start of day 2, and the watches have been off the chargers for 22 hours, so let's see how those battery levels look. The My First Phone R2, 59%. Bark Watch, 52%. Verizon Gizmo Watch 3, 50%. Pinwheel Watch, 47%, Gabb Watch 3E, 40%, and Cosmo JrTrack 5, 38%. it is time to announce my lineup and the results of these tests. So we unfortunately have to disqualify the TickTalk 5. That is my fault for not ensuring that it was set up properly. There was some kind of a SIM card activation issue, and I am going to have to spend some more time getting this watch figured out and do separate testing. So I'm sorry that it could not be a contender in today's challenge, and it falls at number 7. Number 6 is the Pinwheel watch. I really wanted to like this watch, but honestly, you guys, it just did not perform. So it does not have geofencing at all, and it was inaccurate in the GPS open field test, which should be the easiest test of all. I could not get it to load and show its location when I was in the car. It was accurate when I was inside. I'm not a fan of the dot location history, and I couldn't get the SOS to work. That's a huge problem. Audio was muffled when I did make calls, and I couldn't even find the step tracker on this thing. So I would love to get a different model maybe and test it again. There is a small chance that this is an older model that was sent to me for testing, but I'm sorry, Pinwheel, you're number 6. At number 5 is the Cosmo JrTrack 5. So this one ended up having the worst battery life, but it still is going to get you through a full day. However, the geofencing problem, I mean, that's pretty bad. To offer geofencing but then not allow it to work like geofencing is a problem in my book. Now, when you do want to get just live location updates as you want them, this is an accurate watch for that. Again, it only has the dot location history map. Not a huge fan of that. The SOS works, but it only provides a notification. It does not actually place a phone call. That is easy to miss. Also, the volume was muffled on this one as well, and the volume went in and out as we were talking. So Cosmo JrTrack 5, you are number 5. Coming in at number 4 is the My First Phone R2. This one ended up having the best battery life. It was only about 59% after being off the charger for 22 hours. However, it had the same problem as Cosmo with the geofencing, and that is a really big deal. Also, it was somewhat inaccurate in the location tracking tests. It didn't show me in the correct position by the ball field, and it was a little off when I was at home, but it was spot on when I was in the car. The location history map is one of those nice line maps that shows you the route that your child took, and the SOS function on this watch, like I have said, is fantastic. I really like it. I think it's brilliant. Sometimes the audio on this watch was really, really good, and sometimes it was choppy and laggy and delayed. Same with the video quality during video calling. So this watch right here, I think, has some fantastic features, but some of them need a little bit more work. And on to the final 3, and my pick for number 3 is the Gabb Watch 3E. Now, I had a tough time deciding whether this should be number 3 or number 2, and the deciding factor for me ended up being that lack of location history. It also had a lower battery life this morning at 40% compared to about 52% for some of the other watches, but it was accurate on all of my location tracking tests, except for geofencing, where it performed about 3rd best. So I think 3rd place is really good for this watch. Audio is crystal clear. Gotta love it. SOS call worked fine. This is a nice little watch. I like it. For 2nd place, I'm going with the Verizon Gizmo Watch 3. I really like this watch. It has crystal clear audio, really nice video calling quality, and its battery actually lasted really well. It was only at 50% this morning. Now, it was accurate in the GPS open field test and just a little bit off in the car test and when I was inside. Geofencing, it was the 2nd to respond, so it was off by about half a block, and the SOS call worked perfectly. It has a nice little line map for location history as well. So all in all, I was really impressed by how this one performed. That leaves us with our winner, and it's the Bark Watch. And honestly, you guys, it was a runaway winner. It led the pack all the way, all day on all of these tests. It ended up having the 2nd best battery life at 52% this morning after being off the charger for 22 hours, which is much longer than the advertised battery life. Geofencing, it was just so good at geofencing. It responded immediately when I exited, and it was the first watch to say that I had come home. It was accurate in the GPS open field test. If I'm going to split hairs, I'll say that it was not. It was a little bit off when I was in the car. It was like on the, one road down in the parking lot instead of where I was. Accurate indoors, and it has that fantastic location history map that just shows you so much information. SOS worked fine, no notes there. SOS call, not a notification. And yeah, it's just a nice little watch. So well done, Bark. I hope you found my test helpful, but I do want to say there's a lot more to kids' smartwatches than what I tested over the last few days. I feel like I hit the highlights of what parents really care about, but if you're still on the fence about which smartwatch is best for you and your family, then I really encourage you to click the link below, read my full written review. We can get into the nitty gritty details about contact slots, games, ways to keep your child moving and off the screen. There's just so much that these watches can do to protect your child and help them grow into a good digital citizen. So get all the details in the link below. I had so much fun making this video. If you want to see us make more videos like this, like, subscribe, and leave a comment. Share your real-life experiences with kids' smartwatches. Which one do you like best? And if you have any questions, just let us know in a comment below. I'll see you in the next one.